Mayembisa Abdul Moomin na yenje ne thoughts kakao no ye General Secretary Emma Ghana Mine Workers Union ne yembisa ne say anye bia no annual workers day omampani the speech I will deliver here. What did he make of it? It's good to have you this morning, Abdul.
I'm here, my brother. Good morning to you and to all your listeners.
I'm hoping you're doing well.
Oh, by grace, well.
His Excellency the President yesterday sought to give you assurances that your incomes would be protected, your pensions would be protected as well, and a few other comments he made on a day dedicated to we the workers. How did you react to the comments of His Excellency the President?
Well, thank you very much. First and foremost, I must state for the record that consistently the President has made pronouncements, has gingered up our entire membership base, but in the long run, they don't actually materialize. If you recall, in the build-up to this debt exchange program, the President, and in fact, most of his cabinet ministers, including the finance minister, on various platforms, were very emphatic that pensions were not going to be part of the debt exchange program. Along the line, there was every indication that that was actually their original intention until organized labor masked up and said no to that whole, intention. And so I find the President's comments or the President's speech, quite inspiring, but I unfortunately do not have any much confidence in that. Now, if you look at the current state of the economy, it is obvious that the state of the economy do not support incomes. I mean, inflation is skyrocketing in excess of 50%. I mean, you ask yourself, a public standing joint negotiating committee concluded a deal for this year of 30%, which means that incomes are actually under inflation. And it's been like that consistently in the last, 6 years. There hasn't been a year where we have gotten, salary adjustments over and above inflation or even at par with inflation. So if we talk about protecting incomes, what exactly do you mean? Do you mean protecting the nominal value of incomes or protecting the real value of incomes? And so for me, the government, and for that matter, the President must be more forthright. They must focus on, putting the economy back on track and making sure that the cost of living prices that we are currently going through are brought down under controllable, levels. Anything short of that, I do not see how the government or the President can promise the protection of incomes and it will ever be a reality. Now, incomes and pensions are directly related. And so all that I said about incomes, are directly related to pensions. The lower your incomes, the lower your pension, and vice versa. The higher your incomes, the higher your pension. I mean, we all work with the hope that when we retire, we can retire into a fairly decent pension income or retirement income. Unfortunately, incomes in Ghana are really, really, really very low. They are really, really, really very low. And so it is important that we do something drastic about it. But you can't do anything drastic about it if you have an ailing economy that cannot support higher incomes. And so government must put its right foot forward, ensure that the right programs and projects are rolled out, which are productive enough to raise the needed revenue that will support, all of these desires that workers in this country do have. So anything short of that, in my candid view, would not support the President's assurances about protecting incomes and protecting pensions. After all, pensioners are currently going through all the brouhaha, we all know. And pensioners have never been able to earn any, decent incomes. And so it's important to look at a holistic, reform or review. Organized labor has raised issues about income inequities, income inequalities in the country. And whether we like it or not, while others can barely, go home with a money 300 Ghana cedis, in some cases less than that, in pension. There are others who are earning over 100,000, 200,000 Ghana cedis a month, even in retirement. And so clearly, the dichotomy between the situation where you have workers on the lower tier who are earning barely nothing in retirement, and you have those up there, the upper echelon of society, who are earning big, incomes when they retire. I mean, nobody's going to fix this. It's government that must lead the way and ensure that the right reforms are put in place. You must put in policies and programs to ensure that income inequality, pension inequality is brought under control. I cannot do that all by myself. The organized labor cannot do that all by itself. But a government that is conscious about the general improvement in the living conditions of its people must lead the way and ensure that it carries everybody along. And so for me, I expect the president and his government to walk the talk. Enough of the talk.
Now, let's end the conversation with my final question. There's a perception out there that for those of you within the mine sector, you do earn some good income. I don't know whether that perception is true or not, but would you be kind enough to let us know the state of the Ghanaian worker working within that space where you find yourself?
Well, thank you very much. The Ghanaian worker in the mining industry or sector has traversed many, many phases. I can assure you, mining is one of the most hazardous, jobs that you can ever find. And if you look at the history of mining in this country, it is obvious that before the structural adjustment program, you have a lot of miners who, unfortunately, present-day miners, lost their parents and their grandfathers, primarily due to the very hazardous nature of the work at the time. I mean, a lot of people died, a lot of people lost their limbs, their arms, just because of the nature of the health and safety of the work environment at the time. Incomes were generally very, very low. And in fact, pensions, they didn't even have any at all. And so I can assure you that the mining sector has traversed many phases, has really come very, very far. Indeed, in today's mining industry or mining sector, a lot has happened. And I can only associate with some of the comments that you made, that yes, indeed, when it comes to the mining environment, the Ghana Mine Workers Union leading the charge. And the Ghana Mine Workers Union has never taken a backstage. We have led the charge, right from the 80s when foreign direct investment got into the shores of Ghana. And we have made sure that multinational companies do not just come in here, take our resources and walk away with the resources. At least the minimum we would demand is for a fair share to come to our members. And that is the same, the same character and the same courage we expect of the government. You cannot be giving, concessionary arrangements to mining companies, and these same mining companies end up shortchanging the real revenue that should come to the government kitty. I do not support a policy position like that. As much as possible, there should be fair play. So there should be reforms to ensure that we maximize and optimize the revenues that should come from the mining sector, and by extension, the entire extractive sector. I have had calls to talk about the fact that our oil industry is equally going through same arrangements. Our telcos are going through same arrangements. And so it's important that these productive sectors of our economy, where unfortunately we do not have our own participating, we do not have indigenous Ghanaian mining companies participating in the mining sector, same in the telcos, same in the oil, unfortunately, even in the financial or in the banking sectors. For the most part of it, they are foreign-dominated, foreign-controlled. And you don't expect them to repatriate their funds. They will repatriate their funds. And so if you do not have policies that ensure that there's retention of revenue in this country, at least to show up your position and ensure that it creates that economic activity that will bring about trading of goods and services that would eventually bring about enhancements in incomes and all of that. I mean, I can assure you we'll go around in circles and we'll never go anywhere. So yes, the mining sector generally, by virtue of Ghana Mine Workers Union's role in ensuring that multinationals do not take our members for granted, they must ensure that decent salaries are paid. They must ensure conditions of service are relatively progressive. We have come quite far, but we are not even there yet. Our desire is to ensure that the mine worker, whilst in employment, receives a very decent income commensurate with the environment, that has graduate environment that they work in.
All right.
And then when they retire, they can retire with a very decent pension, because as a matter of fact, we look at life expectancy. And we are currently doing some work around that, the life expectancy of a mine worker. Now I can assure you, anecdotally, the observations that we have made is that year in, year out, when mine workers go on retirement, they unfortunately do not last. A year or two, and then unfortunately they pass into glory. And so these are issues that you cannot, wish away, or you cannot sweep under the carpet, because if you're talking about general incomes, general conditions of service, you must also look at the flip side and ask yourself, what is the nature of environment that these people are working in? And is their pensions, is their incomes, is their conditions of service commensurate with the kind of environment that they work in?
Abdul, thank you for joining me this morning.
Many thanks.
And that's Abdul Moomin Ghana joining us this morning on the show, General Secretary for the Ghana Mine Workers Union, sharing some thoughts with us.